And on our DRI, our Downtown Revitalization Package Plan Project, and it's a grant proposal. What's wrong? Is Luke?
No, I'll go get the key. I'll go get batteries.
Well, we could, in the meantime, we could maybe use the, is that reach?
Yeah. Okay, so
This is perfect.
why don't you go ahead and start right there, Jana, and then we can switch over to that mic once we get something. So I know that Jana has passed out a packet to all the board members, and for anybody, while she's making sure that we have everything over there, anyone who has not completed the survey on the DRI, it's available on the fairportdri.com website, and it's a survey looking for community input. You don't have to live in the village of Fairport to complete it. You don't have to be over 18 to complete it, as I've asked our student advisors to complete it. But please feel free to go out and fill out that survey. And I guess she's fixing that, but go ahead and get started.
Okay, so I just have a few goals for tonight. I want to review the DRI process and just make sure everyone is informed and clear on where we've been and what we need to do, understand where we are in that process and what comes next, and then specifically to review the projects that are proposed for the application. And those are all detailed here in the packet that you have in front of you. So, and then answer any questions that you might have about the process or projects at this kind of early point. So for those who, I know that you're all familiar that the DRI is a $10 million grant. It's a competitive grant, and it's awarded to one municipality in each of the regions of New York State. There are 10 regions, and we're in the Finger Lakes region. So we're competing with other communities in the Finger Lakes region. We are, at this stage, we have asked for projects. We will submit an application of both public and private projects at really the conceptual level. So at this stage, you have to be thinking about what could we turn that $10 million into? And our goal is to demonstrate that through a mix of projects that are diverse, serve the community, and help further our goals in our comprehensive and strategic plans of both the village and of OSED. And so that's what we have been working toward over the last few months. If we are awarded the funds, and we think we have a very good chance to do that because we've been working pretty hard at this process, all of the projects that have been submitted to date really represent, again, what could be. And once we are awarded those funds, we will start all over again. That's when New York State will get involved. They'll create what's called a local planning committee, and there'll be on that committee will be representatives of New York State, representatives of the village, representatives of the community, and that's when the real work will begin to decide what will we actually do with this $10 million. So the projects here are real projects and things we could do and things that are based on the public engagement and feedback that we've gotten so far, in combination with known problems we might be trying to solve around the village. So that is the basis for how we went out to do our public engagement, and then we use that public engagement to ultimately shape this version of projects that you see here today, and that if you're not on the board, you can see in the survey that's online. So once we are awarded the funds, the work of resubmitting all projects will begin. Those projects will be specifically awarded in a contract with New York State and the either private property developer or the village if it's a public project. And the important thing to remember is that no project or work can start until we get through that process. So that's probably at least 12 to 18 months post the award. And From there, that's when we get more detailed about the projects. So the projects you'll see today are really, again, like a vision, a concept. And when someone says, hey, I want to invest $1.3 million in Packett's Landing and do this on the facade, we don't say, show us your contractor estimates at this point and show us your detailed scope of work and that kind of thing. We just are looking for the vision and what could be. So that's what you're going to see in these projects today. A couple other things. This is a matching grant program for private projects. So if someone has a $5 million project and it's a private project, it's likely that whole project won't be funded. They won't get 5,000 of the 10 or 5 million of the $10 million. That work also happens at the local planning committee level, where once we have what will be the final slate of project, that group will work to determine which projects get what level of match. Even though in the DRI application, we do ask, what is your request for DRI support? That ultimately is defined by the work of the local planning committee. So in the projects that you might see online, you'll see total project cost, DRI request, and match amount. Those are just the requests from those private projects. Those are not committed dollars to any project. So just important to keep that in mind as we're looking through what we've got right now. So that's kind of the high level on the process. The application is due on next Friday, November 7th. So we're working through kind of finalizing, the final projects, going through this feedback process. We have the survey that is out there, and then once it is submitted in November, it is the awards are announced in January or February, depending on community. They kind of go by community. They don't announce them all at one time. So we expect to know our results by February of 2026, and then, again, that's when the real work will begin. So any questions on any of that before I jump into the timeline of kind of where we were and where we're going next? Great. So I mentioned that the application deadline is November 7th. We will be notified of our award in early 2026. Then we will do another call for projects. That's when it really, again, is a more specific and detailed request. We are going to need those real cost estimates and your project plan and detailed information on how you're going to fund this project specifically. From there, that local planning committee work starts. The recommendations from that local planning committee go to New York State. New York State reviews the final projects, and then they enter into a contract with the recipients for each individual project. And so all the work doesn't have to start at the same time, but no work will start until there's a contract for that work. Sorry, my slide's a little up and upside down. So I mentioned that some of the projects, the public projects, were informed by our community engagement work, and in your packet you have a summary of that community engagement. We started with a pop-up at the farmers market. We had a business and property owner information session in August. We did another pop-up along the canal in September. We did a public open house here in Village Hall, also in September. We did another pop-up in Parrington to get the broader community feedback in October, and then we had a open house for private projects just last week in October. The survey is out now, and that will be the whole conclusion of our public engagement.
I just want to repeat, you can go complete the survey if you go to fairportdri.com. It's right on the homepage. It'll take you just a couple of minutes. It's very quick. There's lots of pictures. And please complete the survey. If we can get lots of people completing the survey, we can get more public feedback, and it's a good thing.
Thank you. So yes, please do complete the survey. We have had some great response to the survey so far. Is this looking at me. We
can
published the
bend it.
survey
Bend the
on,
neck.
it's kind of like floppy.
There, that's better.
We published a survey on Friday of last week, and so far, we have close to 600 respondents. So we got some great responses to our press release that we pushed out to promote the survey, and we had some good pickups of that. The DNC, the RBJ, and maybe News 8 both are all promoted that. So we've had some great response, but we would love even more, so please do complete the survey. Thank you. Any other questions before we dive into the projects? Yes, ma'am.
How did you choose the projects? I guess I'm speaking as the liaison of the public arts, and I know you've met with Sue and you talked to her during this whole DRI process. And then we had a public meeting beginning of October, and we finalized everything and thought we got you everything by the deadline that you had given us.
Yes. So I did receive the public arts project, and it's still in review. All the public projects have to be reviewed by the village, specifically the village manager, for scope and inclusion. And so that's still in process. That is still a project that is eligible to be included in the application. I assume that review will happen. Seems like a great project. But the survey and these projects are based specifically on the projects that were shared in the public engagement. And that project wasn't received during the time when we were doing the public engagement for public projects.
Which would have been September 17th?
Yes, that's correct.
I did take the survey, Jonna.
Thank you.
I did take the survey, and I did note that there is a question about interest in public art. So the project itself, I think that Trustee Briggs is speaking of, is not part of it at this point, but there is a question about constituents' interest in public art. So that part is in there.
Yes.
Then I'm assuming there must be somewhere along the line miscommunication with the public arts as to the deadline was September 15th.
The public projects are all owned by the village, and the Public Art Committee is part of the village. So yes, we had that public engagement before the call for private projects was over, but that's when we received that project. So again, that project is still in review. It still has an opportunity to be included. It just didn't make it in time to be included in the survey and the information we had already pushed out to the public.
It will finish review most likely either the end of this week or the very beginning of next week, and it can still be included in the project.
I understand that it's just really disappointing it's not in the survey, to help support that project.
Noted.
Keep going, John.
Okay, so the first project is a revitalization of Kennelly Park. These are just, again, concepts, nothing is committed. These are things that could be what if. And based on the feedback from the Public Engagement Committee. The main idea here is to better highlight the canal from Kennelly Park, reorient the park so you're using the canal kind of as a backdrop as opposed to, when you go into Kennelly Park right now and you're at the gazebo, you might be facing in towards Main Street. You might be keeping your kids away from the railing that isn't the most, aesthetic or inviting, I'll say. And also with a reoriented park, we can draw people in from Main Street into the park to Moonlight Creamery. Sometimes you don't even know, I can walk from here over to there. So these ideas include a new performance stage or revitalized gazebo, more seating, more picnic areas, upgraded lighting to go with the beautiful lighting on our lift bridge, public art installations, redesigned pathways, and potentially some other more whimsical things like play sculptures or a canal wall mosaic. That estimate is around $900,000. The public projects do not require a match, although a match could be provided should the municipality opt to do so.
If I understand, this is, I mean, it's a diagram that shows, it's almost like a brainstorm diagram.
Yes.
What could be, not that this is the idea and we're moving forward. These are a whole bunch of ideas. Let's see what we all get excited about, but first we have to get the funding.
Correct. Yes, that's right. Just a quick check on time. Like, do I need to be going?
You're good.
quicker? Okay, great.
How many projects do you have? Are there 100 in here? No, I'm just kidding.
There's
You're good.
about, a dozen.
You're good. You have time.
Great. Another thing we've heard about, a lot about, is bicycle infrastructure and improvements to our existing bicycle infrastructure. Again, these are just ideas. There are different views in how do we achieve a more bike-friendly and bike-safe community. But some of the ways that we could do that are identified here. Shared use lanes, more striping and signage, better repair stations, and more abundant water fountains and seating areas and bike racks. We talk a lot about our community being multimodal, and as we're thinking about that in putting together these projects, we really took the approach as to however you arrive, if you come by car, we're going to try to address the problem of how do you get from here to there and not have it be so congested. If you're coming by bike, is it easy to get around, and is there a place to put my bike when I want to park it and go into this great cafe? If you come by boat, how's that harbor, and are things like solid and enough places for me to park? So not just creating a bike lane or focusing on the bikes on the road, but the infrastructure once you get here with your bike. Having a bike-friendly community includes those things too. So that's what's in this project here.
Can I just ask a quick question? The Main Street Skate project was to include the to include the striping.
Which striping? The sharrows in the road?
Yes.
They're painted out there today.
Okay, so I have not seen them. When were they done?
Today.
Oh,
I just drove home and I saw them this afternoon.
I haven't had a chance to see them today. I was working today. That's fantastic. I'm curious why then we would need striping in this?
We're not necessarily talking about Main Street. This is the whole
Yeah,
business
so the
district.
DRI boundary is more than just Main Street.
Okay, thank you.
And who knows, maybe some other great plan has the opportunity to blossom with a different type of bike usage on Main Street.
Thank you.
Just quickly review the boundaries of the DRI.
Sure.
That might be helpful right about now.
Yes, so sorry I didn't include that in the packet. It's a square about a 3/4 mile or about a 1/3 mile square coming from Church Street
Okay.
up to High Street and then over to from 5th Street or Avenue up to Turk Hill Road, and then up and over. But I'm happy to send that, and you can see the boundary on the DRI.com website.
I just think we've been so focused in our mindset the last several years on Main Street, Main Street, Main Street, that it's good to remind you that it is not just the Main Street corridor or just the canal. It is a larger chunk.
It can be. We didn't get many projects outside of the Main Street corridor or the canal. But that doesn't mean that those couldn't be submitted.
Jonna, did the language, I took the survey today. Did the language in the survey about the bike infrastructure piece, do you remember, did it say from Main Street to the canal or the business district to the canal. I
It
thought that's
doesn't,
what it
it
said.
doesn't say, it just,
I was just asking Jonna.
It,
I thought that's what it said.
It does say, the project will strengthen the connection between the canal path and Main Street, encouraging trail users to explore the village, visit local shops, restaurants, and attractions. So is that what you were
Yeah,
referring
I
to?
mean, I guess that's why I was just thinking that the striping stated here, connected to what I read today on the survey, that it would be Main Street to the canal, or, right, the business district to the canal.
Yes, that is what you read here. To Julie's point, we're not limited just to this.
Sure.
And
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't
this
crazy
is
that I
not,
did read that.
these are ideas and concepts, not definitely where the ultimate project might fall.
Okay, but it does make sense why the confusion if it says it on there, and then we have striping here, and we just had striping on Main Street. Right, that does make sense why I was confused about that.
Yes.
I think
Well, I think
we have to,
this is
we have to go
similar
back-
to the
this is
Kennelly
high
Park where these
concept.
are,
It's all concepts.
Okay.
It's not details, not defined, it's concept ideas.
Okay,
Thank you.
the next one in the packet is the concept of a trolley, and I'll just clarify, I use the word trolley a lot because look how cute it is in your photo, and this is a town that it is important that we maintain our charm and aesthetic, and a shuttle bus up and down Main Street might not fit in so nice as a shuttle that looks more like it fits in our village. So the point of this pilot transit program is to alleviate some of the congestion we have at certain parts of the village at certain times of day. We hear a lot about parking, as you can imagine, anytime we're doing public engagement. But this board knows we have an abundant amount of free public parking, more than most places you might go. It just isn't where many people want to go at a particular time. So the concept of the trolley is to have designated points where people who are visiting our village, a lot of them come in through 31F, but they might be trying to go all the way to the other end at the cannery. And they demonstrate every time we have a festival, when we set up a shuttle service, that they're willing to park their car and get out and ride that shuttle then. So this would allow people to park at one end of the village, hop on that shuttle, and get to the other end without adding to the congestion. It might also encourage stopping and getting off at a shop or a restaurant that you might not have if you just drove right by. And while we do have a walkable and bikeable community, not everyone is a walker, whether by choice or ability. And again, our goal is to have diverse options for once you arrive. How is your visit, and is it friendly to your community? And this is another tool for us to meet that need. So the project is only for the structures. That's all that would be allowed by the DRI. And so we would have to identify additional funds for the acquisition of the vehicles and the operation. But
right,
the-
that's right, because DRI doesn't want you to purchase something that can very easily be located elsewhere. If it's gonna be for the downtown area, they want whatever is being acquired to stay in that downtown area. Yeah.
Yeah, so the funds could be used to develop your program or market your program and for the infrastructure, but not for that. So if this project was to be included, it would be dependent on identifying that additional funding.
And that would be something the LPC would be working through.
The LPC wouldn't award it to this project unless that had
Right.
been identified. So that would have to be work done with the village in partnership with OSED, just like the rest of this project. The next project are upgrades to the North and Southeast Bank Harbor. On all of the needs are not the same on both sides. We recently had an upgrade to the northeast side, but on that side, we need more improvements along the walkway. And on the south east bank, we need more actual harbor improvements like bollards and power and those kinds of things. But this project addresses both of them, making both the promenade a little more welcoming and a place to highlight some of the places that you can gather, but you might not because they're a little bit secluded or dated, but also making those important maintenance and safety upgrades. The next project is placemaking and wayfinding. We've got some great signs in great locations in the village, but there are opportunities to improve them from a find your way to where you're want to go perspective. So this project addresses that, more directional signage, more highlighting of some of the things that we might say, oh, the festival site but how do I get there if I'm parking here at Village Hall if I don't know where Liftbridge Lane East is? So making sure that those places that we identify like by their name are also highlighted in the wayfinding. And most importantly, that those can be engaged also like at the pedestrian level. A lot of times signage is built within our like car in mind, and can you see it from the street and when you're driving, but again, we want people to be walking, so you need to be able to find your way on foot as well.
Would this enhance, would this enhance our current signage, or would this be an all-over new way to go?
The goal would be to enhance the current signage. You can see in like the bottom left-hand, that picture. So that's some good like structure and bones for signage, but it's a little bit broken right now. It's not quite exactly clear and intuitive for the user. So the goal would be to use that and repurpose that in a way that is more clear and intuitive.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Those are the public projects. The next are the private projects. I'm going to go through those a little bit quicker. But again, feel free to ask any questions that you have. So the first project is the biggest and most exciting. A big focus of the DRI is residential development. And we've got a little bit of that in our application without this project, but this one is very significant. It would represent 100 residential units, and the intention is for those to be workforce housing. It would be in the area that is the back end of the cannery now. It includes a proposal for parking to support its development, which is a question a lot of people wonder when we talk about that scale of development. It's presented by 43 North, who is, the head of 43 North is Joel Barrett, who's done other good work in this community, and Doug Calabrese, longtime property owner in the village. 1 through 13 North Main Street, otherwise known as the Millstone Block Building, those are additional exterior facade improvements. You might see right now there's work going on that facade, and that's exciting to see some improvements to that important building. But the current owner anticipates additional facade improvements to give it a more uniform aesthetic look and also improve the green space behind the building that faces the canal that right now is a bit underutilized. 52 North Main Street is a property that recently turned over. You might know it as the Stringed Instrument Building at the corner of Main Street and Railroad Street. And then at the back, there are some storage units. And the new owner has a great vision for redeveloping the front building and enhancing the facade, adding a multi-tenant level on the second floor, and doing a number of cosmetic improvements. 57 South Main Street addition. This is it's proposed as an office or residential conversion, but this would be adding a floor to 57 South Main, 2 floors, I'm sorry, and likely adding residential, as I mentioned, so another important need here in our community. 85 to 87 South Main is the Masonic Lodge. That includes some exterior repairs, some interior work, and some work on the facade. 66 North Main Street beautification. Now we're going like the opposite. That's on the other side of the bridge, next to Affaire de Chocolat, owned by Jim Kruger. And that building has some facade updates, as you can see right now from Main Street. It could use some beautification from the outside. The next is our improvements to the Historical Museum, the Perryton Historical Society Museum, some main floor improvements, and an important thing to them, there's no AC in the building, and it limits their opportunity for some programming and things in the hot months. The Performing Arts Center is also known as the former Fairport Baptist Church, the red church on the corner. It's got a lot of ties in the community, and there is a request from that owner for converting the church into a performing arts center. Fairport Village Landing, and that request is for mostly exterior signage, but the most interesting maybe to the folks here, there is the giant boulder covered with mulch in the middle. And the goal is to improve the aesthetic of that, perhaps open it up and create some kind of atrium or art installation. And additionally, there is a mural that connects the building to the garage or a hallway. A mural was started there, but it hasn't been finished. So the potential completion of that mural as part of this project. The hotel and shops on Main Street is submitted by J.B. Sterling, a local and well-known developer. This is to address an ongoing or identified need for a hotel in the village. And the location of this, the proposed location, is at the OSED parking lot at North Main Street, behind the existing parking lot where it is undeveloped. Again, these are ideas and our opportunity to demonstrate what could be given the award. The next project is Packett's Landing improvements. So Packett's Landing right now looks, nice from the front and nice from this side, but when you look at the canal, it looks like the back of the building. And this is an opportunity to give that building a canal-facing facelift and create a much more welcoming and pleasing facade, improve the building with some balconies, and again, highlight the real gem of that building is its canal experience and not so much its parking lot experience. So the total of those projects, the public projects are $4.7 million or so dollars. The private projects are $71.6 million for a total of about $76.3 million. So our goal was to demonstrate that we could take this $10 million and have a real impact both on our community and from an economic investment perspective. And so we think we've done a great job in demonstrating that. This is what will potentially garner us the award, and that's when we have the great opportunity to determine what we're really going to do with those dollars. So That's the conclusion of my presentation. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
So for the board, what do you need next from us? It's great that you came and presented,
Yes.
but what's the next step for the board as we move through this process?
I know he's not present. I'm going to defer to the village manager, but I believe that he will be requesting approval either through a special meeting or a resolution from this board before the application is submitted.
So what I'm sharing with board members is there will probably be outreach from Brian in the next few days to try and schedule a very short meeting for us to look at a resolution or whatever needs to be passed for this to go on to the next step for submission. Because submission is next Friday, the 7th. We will need, a week from this Friday,
Yes.
we'll need to do that as quickly as possible next week. So I will follow up with Brian after this meeting and ask him to send a note out to the board members as to when we can get together for, again, a very short meeting, just with the desire to follow the next step that we need so Jana can submit this.
Okay, just once again for clarity, the public art trail that the Public Arts Committee has been working on for close to 20 years. So this is not a new project. It was in the original proposal. So how do we get this included? Brian is going to review it, and then
Yes.
it's going to get included, or Brian decides if it gets included?
It's not that it gets included or not, it just has to be scoped, right? It's submitted with numbers, but they have to be part of the whole village. They have to go through the same process as the other ones did. So Brian reviewed these other projects that we just reviewed. He took that information and he came up with these estimates, and he needs to do the same thing with this one, and that's what he will do, and presumably include a version or the similar version into this application. Again, I can't speak for what Brian is going to do, but that's would be my next expectations.
As is my expectation as well, that will be included. Whatever we pass a resolution for next week, I expect that the Public Art Committee piece will be included in the application. It just was not in time to put it into the survey.
So the other thing I think it's important to clarify too is the projects that are included in the application. When the grant is awarded, that does not automatically guarantee the projects in that application get funding. Any one of these may not make the final cut at the end. We start over. The local planning committee starts over and goes through a separate vetting process where even more information is gathered and more information from the people who have submitted. I know this because I've managed some of them for Department of State. The application is rigorous. And oftentimes what happens is some folks will come out and they go, oh, they actually got the money for this. Well, now I'm interested. Whereas before, they may not have seen the reality of it. So I just want to make sure that that's out there too, and that, I'm not saying that any of these would lose it. It's just it does not guarantee that these projects get funding at the end of the
You
next
got to get
step.
in there to even be considered.
No, you can actually not be and then apply.
Yeah, this is a great example of the process
Yeah.
working. Adam's absolutely right, that there are people who haven't submitted anything, and they're going to wait to see if we really get the money, and then they're going to submit their project. There's people who submitted their project who are going to say, I can't wait 24 or 36 months to start. I'm going to get started, then they become ineligible. There will be decisions made by the village perhaps to say, hey, we can't raise that money for that trolley. That project's out. That's why all of these are just conceptual what could be, and they don't garner any like extra grade when it comes to actually getting the project. So the public art trail could be included in this application and then not be included ultimately. So there is
Or vice
no
versa.
harm to not having your application, whether you're a public project or a private project. Right now, there's no harm in the fact that your application didn't get in, or your project didn't get included into the application at this time.
Yeah, it's mostly to show to the state that there are plenty of projects within the community that could use that $10 million, because they don't want to send a $10 million grant, and then you only need maybe 500,000. You know, that would not be a wise use of those funds.
Jonna, do you know offhand when the deadline was for the public proposals that needed to be into Bryan to be? Because we keep saying we missed the deadline, so I'm wondering what was that, if you know offhand?
The public projects were presented at that September 17th public engagement meeting. So at that point, from the perspective of Brian and this committee, the public projects had been identified, and that project, however it happened, hadn't been identified at that time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What effect does the size of the project have on maybe any sort of like obligation? I don't know if that's quite the right word, but the $50 million 100 unit. I mean, that's the biggest project
Right.
in amongst the group. What can you speak? Maybe even Adam can speak to that, or
So that's a great question, and there's a few things that you jogged my memory on. So for one, to be included as a baseline project, projects had to be over $75,000, and that would be considered a transformative project. There is another public project that we didn't talk about today called the Small Project Fund. So a fund will be created. Right now, we have proposed a $600,000 DRI contribution to the Public Project Fund, and those are for projects that didn't meet that criteria or level of 75,000. Those projects might get funded in full. They might have some match. It might be a private project that might not have been transformative, but still is a valuable project that we might still want to consider funding. And so that isn't the question that you asked, but I just wanted to make sure that we talked about that small project fund. But the question you asked is really about like how are the dollars distributed, and does a big project like suck up the dollars?
or yeah, is it weighted?
So,
is there pressure to?
There is and maybe Adam does have a little more detail into the scoring, but once we're at the local planning committee level, there's a scoring or rubric each application will go through to ultimately determine where do those match dollars go. And there wouldn't be a scenario where that $50 million development gets $5 million and takes most of the money because they have the biggest project. Usually, a bigger ask will be capped at $1 million or $2 million. Other projects might be matched at a percentage, 40 or 50% is what we typically see. Minimally, you might see a match of 25% for an average size project, but then the ones that get really big in scope, they just get a flat amount awarded.
Okay. It's a big project.
It's a big project, yeah.
It's a big project.
Yeah, I mean, just to flesh that out, it's like, since this all goes through the local planning committee, when we would run it, it'd be like, hey, listen, you could ask for the full 10 if you want. You're probably not going to get it, because the local planning committee is also considering what are other projects that are worthwhile spending it on. So there's discretion as well within the planning committee. And honestly, I think if the local planning committee basically sent a project list where a vast majority of it is taken by one project, I'm pretty sure DOS would send it back and say, yeah, try again. Because that's also not what they're looking for as well. But that's that next step too, where the local planning committee will will review the information from that application that Jonna was talking about, and then have discussions. And all those discussions are public as well. And through those discussions, that there have been times, there was one where I think the local planning committee went back and said, hey, we really like this project, can you do it with X instead of Y? And they were able to move forward that way too. So there's still room for discussion. There's actually a lot of room for discussion in the second stage. But I think, real quick, this has been awesome. It's been great. Some of these projects are really fantastic. I love the idea of packets landing. I was telling somebody just the other day, it's like the problem with Packets Landing is the back of it is facing the canal. And, it was really highlighted when during the 200th anniversary, you're like, oh, this could have been so cool. You could have seen people up there on balconies. So I'm excited to see what's in here. I know there's a lot of work that has even gone into just getting it to this point. And, I think, I don't know, I think we're in good shape.
I
I'm
love
excited.
the reinvestment in existing outdated infrastructure. I think that piece is really, really cool. And I love the diversity of projects. Really creative stuff. It's hopeful.
Yeah, we have a great community that is interested in reinvesting in the community. We have some other real advantages in this process, and the number one is all the work that you've already done here. You have already demonstrated the capacity to bring private investment to this village, to invest public dollars into infrastructure that's needed, and to focus on the things that are working from a canal and visitor and how do we really engage the community perspective. And all of those are great advantages in this process. We have, a lot of great successes so far, but there's still a lot of work to do. All the things we've talked about here, and all of the success, brings more things to do. Right now, we have more people here, and we have to manage how they get here, and where do they put their cars, and how does everybody get around. So a lot of great work has been done, and that is really going to be the catalyst for us to do the next thing. So I think we're in great shape from
Jenna,
opportunity.
How will the results of the survey end up being used?
The results of the survey, we will review the public projects for sure and make sure that, there's not something that is
Nobody wants or.
wholly unpopular. I'll give you a quick example. This is an example of us using the feedback when we did our first public engagement and we highlighted Kennelly Park. There was an idea, a suggestion, just an idea. It didn't happen. The tree is still out there, but that the big pine tree should be removed. And we got a lot of feedback that would not be a great idea. So that idea was removed and rethought as we were evaluating what's the right approach for the revitalization of that park. So that survey information will give us an idea of what's going to work and what's not going to work. So any fine tuning on the public projects. It also allows us to demonstrate to the decision makers that we have an engaged public and interest. And our results so far, we've seen a lot of interest, so that's a good sign.
I'm just going to ask Xander and Sean, is there anything that you have questions about that you've heard? Did you guys go out and find the survey while you were sitting there?
I did find the survey, and I did actually have a question on the trolley project. Based off of the pop-ups that you've had in the village and around town, do you think that there will be enough support or need for a trolley to get around the Village of Fairport?
I do think that there is a need, certainly, that has been demonstrated. There is a general trend of approval, actually, for all the public projects in any of the public engagement. And we do it in a really simple way. We put up a board that has the project with the same pictures, and we give people stickers, red and green, and we let them write notes. And there are always an abundance of green dots and very few red dots. And that's true for all of the public projects. For the most part, these projects have support. There are different ideas about how they should operate. So while people like the idea of the trolley, they might have different ideas of where should the stops be, and when should it run, and what should the schedule be, and those kinds of things.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything, Xander? Anything, Xander? It's okay.
questions.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for sharing your question. Does the board have anything further for Jana? Okay.
I was also just going to say, Johnny, you had also presented to your board, to the OSED board.
Yes, we had a
on
board
Monday,
meeting last
And
Monday.
I feel bad, I have not sent the minutes out from being
It's
at
okay.
that meeting, or I haven't shared that yet, so.
Yeah.
That was Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here,
welcome.
and thank you for all the work that your team is doing on this project, along with herding all the cats that.
Absolutely our pleasure, and we are fortunate to have this great village to do the work that we do.
As we are fortunate to have your team and your board as partners in this. So thank you. For the board, again, I will reach out to Brian and ask him to ask board members for availability for next week so that we can do the legislative piece that we need to do for this project so that we can get this submitted on time by the 7th of November. Gosh, it'll be November already. Anything else about, I'm not going to ask people what their schedules are. I'm going to let Brian manage that part of this and see if we can find 15 minutes that we can get together between now and, I guess, Thursday. We'd have to have it done by Thursday, right, Megan? The resolution, if she's going to submit the project, because she probably needs to submit that in conjunction with the project, right?
The
Showing-
submission's digital, right? Okay, good.
Okay, all right. So we'll see what we can get done at the very beginning of next week. With that, I'm going to move to our next topic, unless there's any last remaining comments about that piece. Okay. So we're going to move on to the zoning board update, continued discussion. And I'd just like to set the stage a little bit. Jill Weidrich is here this evening, our planner, and she's going to introduce how we're going to look at these topics. But we're really at the point of not so much asking questions about what's in the draft code, but we really need to discuss amongst the board how we come to some sort of consensus or what consensus even means. And first of all, I just want to remind everybody it's the responsibility of the village board to implement a zoning code that's aligned with the spirit of the comprehensive plan as we think about these things. What I can share with you is that we are very lucky that we have Jill with us. We will be looking at this as an evergreen type of project. I can share that with Jill's experience and knowledge, and we will be working on this on a regular basis, taking a look at things that work, things that don't work. So just because something's in here and 6 months down the road or a year down the road, it doesn't seem to be working the way it was planned, this is not the do-all, end-all, and I can assure you all that we won't be waiting 30 years to change the zoning code for the north side of Parse Avenue from business to residential, when that's all that's ever been there is residential. There's that, and I'm thinking of a few other things that we tried to work on, and they never really got accomplished because we didn't have someone who was really driving the work behind the zoning code, or even the comprehensive plan, or taking a look at it on a regular basis and going, this is not working. So I think that the other thing I'd like you all to consider is that this is really a middle-of-the-road approach to this zoning. I know we've all had conversations with the members of the community, and I've heard from a number of people who work in the planning industry as well as residents who feel that this code doesn't go far enough into different projects. I know that some members of this board have heard from people who feel that all of this is way too much. And we have to understand that this is trying to find some place that is in the middle and that gives attention to the middle of the road with this project. So I think that's enough for me. I'm going to let Jill, and Jill is here not to answer questions about, on page 35, what is, by now we should understand what's in this code. So since we've had it for 2.5, 3 months. So Jill is really here to help facilitate this conversation about places that we don't necessarily have consensus as a board on. So go ahead, Jill.
I guess I'd like to start by talking about how we got here, because we've been at this for a while. The community has taken a lot of steps to get us here and talk about the next steps going forward. So obviously, we adopted as a community a comprehensive plan in 2021. And from that, we knew that the next step was obviously to update the zoning code. So we started that process in January of 2024. And through the course of time, we've had a lot of conversations with a lot of folks and 2 rounds of public outreach that solicited a lot of information that informed, obviously, the draft zoning code. So at this point, I love my analogies. And I liken this to the zoning working group and the community were given the task of baking a cake. And so we came to the village board and we said, well, tell us a little bit about what you'd like this cake to have in it. And so that was the sessions where we talked about non-conforming uses and the presence of the 2 families and multifamilies and single-family districts. And we got a little bit more information as to where the village board, the direction that you wanted us to go to create this cake. So the zoning working group went back, we made the cake, we did all this stuff. And so the consultant and myself and the zoning working group and the community are presenting this cake to the village board. And so the next step is for the village board to say, does the cake need more frosting, a little less frosting? Do we want to cut it? What's that next step? So a lot of people think, well, how does it work in terms of the process? So at this point, the village board has the draft. And it's for the village board to take a look at and think, are things here, do we need to talk further about particular topics? Do we need to refine different portions of the code? And I'm here to facilitate that conversation and obviously answer any questions that are necessary. But the important part now is the discussion amongst the village board. So I'm here to help, to facilitate. And again, if there are any questions that you have of me, I'm happy to respond to that. But I think at this point, the most important part is the conversation that occurs amongst the 5 of you.
I would say we definitely want to cut the cake.
I find analogies are very, very helpful to help people feel where we are in a process. And who doesn't like cake?
Who doesn't like cake?
So with that, I had asked everyone on the board to send out the areas that they wanted to discuss for consensus. And I think that the easiest one is to start with the simplest one, which is RVs. And then we'll start to go on to some of the other emails and find out what there is. So I'm going to lead this by saying that Heidi had asked if we could adjust the code for some changes to the RV code. And I made sure that everybody had a copy of what Jill sent out as the proposed change to it. And do you want it read? What would you like to do? I can read it.
Heidi, this was Heidi's piece, right? How do you feel, does this reflect what you were envisioning?
Yeah,
And
I
in what
think-
ways was it, I guess, was it reflective?
I think it just makes a lot more sense. It reflects my conversation and my questions and concerns about anyone that has, whether it's an RV, but also including boats, camper trailers, off-road vehicles, travel trailers, whatever it may be, just allowing people to have them in their driveway from
I think it's April.
April
through
1st to November 1st, because there's so many properties that do not have access to the backyard to bring a trailer into the backyard, or the properties are so that there's not a large enough side yard to pull a trailer alongside the house safely.
And then outside that window of time, the April through November time, that's when it would be stored in the side yard if someone would have a side yard to store it in.
Or it'd be off property somewhere. The side or the rear yard.
Side or
Yeah.
the rear, yes.
And this also assumes that, the RV is in good working condition. It is not like some bare bones, something just sitting in your driveway.
I'm gonna read this because, and then
Clear.
I think it makes it clear. A maximum of one licensed recreational vehicle owned by a full-time resident of the property that is equal to or less than 25 feet in length and 11 feet in height, not including the tongue, hitch, satellite dish, antennas, HVAC units, etc., may be stored outside in a residential driveway 10 feet from the right-of-way, so it can't be right up near the road, from April 1st to until November 1st. B, licensed recreational vehicles may be stored within the interior side yard behind the front building line, or in the rear yard, and it must be located at least 10 feet from any lot line. So that's anytime?
So the allowance for someone to have it on their driveway is obviously April 1st to November 1st. Once that date hits, then the expectation is that
Okay,
they will.
I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly.
Yep.
C, licensed recreational vehicles shall be screened from view except from the street by a solid fence or evergreen hedge at least 6 feet in height. There is no limit on the storage of recreational vehicles within fully enclosed permanent structures, so if you had a garage or building that you stored them in. Temporary storage tents do not meet the requirement of a fully enclosed structure. So my neighbors across the street who have a pop-up tent, is that what you mean, or just a tent?
Well, there's different variations of that. So over the course of my career, I've seen some folks that have a carport situation and put tarps on it so that it's an enclosed structure. That doesn't count.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I get it now. A tent, you're talking about where the vehicle is stored. I was like, okay, I'm lost. All right, I'm glad I'm reading through this. No recreational vehicle may be used for living, sleeping, housekeeping, or home occupation purposes in any district and shall not be hooked up to any public utilities. F, the recreational vehicle, if required to be registered or inspected or operated upon the roadways or waterways of the state, was registered and/or issued a valid inspection certificate within the past 12 months, or if not required to be registered and/or inspected, to be operated upon the roads or waterways of the state, is in operable condition. The fact that a recreational vehicle is not moved off of property for a period of 1 year shall be presumptive evidence that the vehicle is inoperable. Okay. So, Heidi, do you feel that meets the needs of what you were looking to have in the code?
Yes, I think it does. It very well meets the needs of what I'd like to see in the code.
Okay. Adam, do you have any questions or concerns about what that is?
No, you hit on it as you were going through.
Okay. I don't have any concerns. Emily, do you have any concerns?
Does the term shall be, that means
You have to.
you have to. Okay, I just wanted to be sure.
Shall is strong.
Yes, shall
Yeah.
and may.
May is weak. Yeah.
Okay, so, got it. Must be screened. Shall be screened. Okay, thank you.
Do you have any other
No,
concerns?
that was my question. Shall be.
Okay. Do you feel comfortable that you could support that?
I think this is a really nice compromise.
Okay,
Glad we could-
and I'll share this before I go on to the last person. It is almost November 1st, so even if there were vehicles out there, they're all going to be moved within 4 days, 5 days. So this really wouldn't come into play until next year.
Well, it wouldn't come into play at all this year because the new code hasn't been adopted. So
Yeah.
so we'd follow the current code that
Okay.
doesn't have this sort of requirement.
Okay, Tracy, do you have any questions, comments, or concerns?
Yes, I guess I want to start with our current county, our current our current zoning code, I think has served the village really well for the last 35 years. We're the entertainment destination of Monroe County. We're the 4th most desirable neighborhood in the nation. And we're second in the county with the highest property values. And if you look at Pittsford, because I'm nosy and I did, we're close. We're close. So, yes, I see that our code is dated and we need to address things. But Fairport is really strong right now. We're coming from a very strong position. Preserve, protect, enhance what we are. And I think our old code has done that as far as establishing an
Tracy, do you have
ambiance.
concerns about this specific entry?
Yep, I'm almost there.
Okay, because we're trying to be concise.
The part of what makes Fairport so desirable is, and I'm looking right here from our comp plan, beautiful, friendly, charming, historic. So I do not support changing and allowing RVs, boats, jet skis, anything parked in the driveway. And I would encourage the code to include, don't give a special variance. I think it would have an incredible negative impact on the aesthetics and the charm of our village. If driving up and down Main Street, we got boats and anything and RVs all over the place. I think that part of the code has served us where we are today very well. I also think there's a conflict of interest and perhaps an ethics violation. It is suggested by an elected official who would directly benefit from this change if it were to be made law. So if it is, you have an elected official asking for a law to benefit from it directly. And as I'm saying, it's got to be an ethics or, so if the rest of you decide that it's in the code, I would think at least Heidi would have to recuse herself from voting on the code at all for a potential conflict of interest and the lack of impartiality of saying, I want this because I want to keep my big camper in my driveway. So yes, those would be my
John,
comments.
would you like to speak to that?
I don't want to discuss that in an open meeting out of respect for privilege and confidentiality of my advice to the board members, but we can talk about that offline, and I can certainly address that with the board.
Do we think that that would benefit people on the board for not having that in their neighbor's yard?
Clarify.
If that's the case, and you think that would be a negative effect on the value of your home, then it sounds like there's a conflict of interest on the other side.
Right now, we don't have boats, campers, RVs, jet skis, sporting equipment in driveways. They're stored for a shorter period of time, only in a side yard or a backyard.
Right, my question was more, it sounds like you think you would benefit by not having that in your neighbor's yard. And so if that's the case, it sounds like your argument flips
I'm
back
going to
on
ask
you.
for no comments from the crowd.
I don't
please.
understand, but I guess I don't understand. I think it would definitely have a negative impact on the village as a whole, as well as my property, to have boats and RVs and everything stored 9 months of the year in driveways. Every driveway could potentially do this. So yes, I think it would have a negative effect on the village desirability
It's
and
6
property
months.
values.
It's 6 months. It's not 9 months.
April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November?
No, November 1st.
It's November 1st.
April 1st to
Oh,
November 1st.
okay. I'm sorry, I misspoke.
If I just might add, we are a canal destination, and I think with that does come some flexibility for boaters. Not necessarily RVs, I guess, don't pertain to our canal, but the boating situation has been brought up to be more flexible in other circumstances, which I have heard. I think that it's a limited time. I think that, I'm not talking about conflict of interest here. That's a completely separate topic. But we've narrowed it down to 6 months. There's screening that's required, shall be required to side or rear. So there's parameters, which I appreciate to this. It's not just a free-for-all. I think it's balanced.
Well, I would like to speak to boating a little bit in case that came up tonight.
I'm just going to make a suggestion. This is, the intention of this is to talk to the board to try and either convince us that we don't support this as it is, or for you to determine that you're going to keep your feelings about it and the majority of the board is going to move on. So before we go down this path, I just want to make sure that you understand that you are,
Oh, whatever I say, whatever you do is you, but I have to say how I feel about this subject.
and I'm giving you that opportunity, but we're not going to spend an hour talking about how you feel about it. So please keep it
Oh, I
concise.
thought it was answering what Adam had asked.
If you want to answer that, go right ahead.
I already did.
Okay.
Now, but talking about the boats that will be somehow included with the addition of the recreational vehicles, or is only the recreational vehicles getting the extension?
So, can I go back a little bit farther? The current requirements for allowing recreational vehicles are outside of the zoning code. And so at this time, it calls for a special permit. So there are situations where a special permit has been issued by the Zoning Board of Appeals for folks to keep their boat, trailer, et cetera, within their driveway as a special permit. We elected to include it in the zoning code to make it more comprehensive. And of course, the definition of recreational vehicles is at the top of the section that I provided to everyone, so you can see that. So when we talk about recreational vehicles, it includes all of those items. It includes boats, trailers, RVs, et cetera. So this section of code applies to any recreational vehicle.
And I'm looking at that section of village code right now. Requires that such a person owns the property that it's on. I don't see anything in here on a time limit. So in other words, they could store it, in theory, on their property for 12 months? Is that how it currently
If
is?
they are currently meeting those requirements, so that it is required to be screened in the rear yard, et cetera.
Right.
If they are unable to meet those requirements, the path through them is a special permit. And so in this instance, let's say that somebody was unable to meet those requirements. They wanted to keep their RV in their driveway November 2nd to January 1st. It would no longer be a special permit that they'd have to go for. It would be an area variance. And as we've discussed, over the course of the last year, an area variance starts at no. So we expect you to comply with the code. So again, let's suppose somebody said, I want to keep my boat or my RV or whatever that might be in my driveway for that period of time. They have to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals and plead their case. And that goes for any section, any element of that portion of code. So it is structured a little bit differently. And from my perspective, it's a little bit, the mountain is a little bit higher to climb in terms of how we handle recreational vehicles in the village.
So real quick though, just to clarify, the way it works currently is since it's not in the zoning code, but it's within a different section within Village of Fairport Code,
Correct.
shall be screened from view except from the street. So this incorporates all of that language. If somebody today were not able to do that, they could go for a special use permit, and they would be
Correct.
able to store on their property for 12 months.
If the zoning board of appeals granted them that special permit to do that,
Right.
they could do that.
And that's a little bit easier than, like you said, than the variance, which is what we're saying.
Correct.
By pulling it in to the current zoning code, we're actually making it more restrictive.
Correct. So I can appreciate that it seems like it's a little bit more lenient because now we've allowed for dates and the presence in a driveway. But I think if you drive around the village, and we've talked about the different elements of development that we see, we clearly have some neighborhoods that were developed between 1880 and 1920. We have some that, maybe look more 1940 to 1960. And then there's neighborhoods that are clearly developed from 1960 to, let's say, 1980. And so because of where the position is of those structures, some folks are just not going to be able to meet this code. And so if they desire to keep that recreational vehicle on their property, they will need an area variance to be granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals, which again starts at no. So from my perspective, this is a little bit more stricter than the existing code.
So right now, Tracy, the four of us have agreed that we don't have any problem with this. Is there something else that you would like to bring up to convince any of us to change where we stand on this?
No, I think I made that pretty clear.
Okay. Then I'm going to move on. And I know you have another analogy that I would love for you to share right now that has to do with whether we can all agree on everything that comes in front of the board or not.
This is actually one that applies to me personally. I think a lot of people know I'm a big music fan, and I have a large CD collection, a large record collection, and I even dabble in 8-tracks. And so the last time I went to purchase a vehicle, I was told there are no CD players, which came as a shock to me. But I still bought the vehicle because I liked other aspects of the vehicle. And so when we talk about zoning codes, you can apply the same analogy to that. There are elements that you're not going to be in love with. There are elements that you're going to think are fantastic, but overall, you still make the decision to purchase the car because you think it's moving forward. And so I encourage you to take a look at the zoning code and consider it as a whole document rather than just particular elements.
Thanks.
Can I ask for clarification, though, one last time, just so I'm clear? So if this language stays in the code, then nothing gets to be stored in the driveways unless you come and ask for a variance, which starts at no.
So the code as written says that you can store in your driveway a recreational vehicle between April 1st and November 1st. November 2nd, the expectation is that your recreational vehicle is removed. And if it's not, then enforcement will take action. If you decide that you'd like to store your recreational vehicle in your driveway between November 2nd and let's say March 31st, that is, you require an area variance. And that would be a trip to the Zoning Board of Appeals where again, that area variance starts at no.
And the way the code is written applies to everything in your first paragraph.
Correct, so that's the
Boats,
definition
watercrafts.
of recreational vehicles.
So all of that stuff can be stored in driveways starting once this code is adopted.
Correct. For April 1st through November 1st.
Okay,
And this was.
thank you for the clarification.
Sure. This was another, I had a great conversation with a couple of residents about recreational vehicles. And so this was something that Mark and I had started the conversation about how to accommodate that the Zoning Board of Appeals in their applications that they have reviewed have noted in their decisions that we are a canal town, that we are water oriented. And how do you accommodate folks' desire to have elements of that lifestyle and be respectful of the neighboring properties? And so this is a good compromise for that.
I could add a comment about boats and canal communities. being a boater my whole life and being married to a 1,500-ton pilot and captain of boats, know a lot about boats. We've had a lot about boats. I guess I can see that from the point of view if you weren't a boater, because the canal has a very specific clientele. If you, it would be my experience that if you have a boat small enough to be on a trailer, you're spending very little time in the canal, other than maybe our 3 festivals. Why do I say that? If you have a trailer or boat, you're a fisherman, and there are way better places to fish than in the canal. So you want that flexibility to go fish other places. Probably rarely fish in the canal. And the other thing about pleasure boat people that have boats small enough that can fit on trailers is pure recreation. They're fun. You want to play your music, you want to side tie with your friends, you want to go fast, you want to go, skiing, tubing, all of that. And for those reasons, you can't do any of that stuff on the canal. So I would be hard pressed to say that, yes, we are a canal community, but the trailer boats were not bought to be used on the trailer. And I would say 99% of their time, they're out on big water. So I guess I would put a myth in the, we're a canal town, we should encourage boats.
Well, that information that I'm providing you to comes from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So that's not my opinion. It's what the Zoning Board of Appeals has stated in their decisions.
Anything further on this topic? Okay. The next topic that I'm going to bring up is ADUs. Emily, I don't know exactly what about ADUs you wanted to talk about, because I asked. Well, we're not going to go over the code. We're going to talk about support or lack of support for what is written in the code. And I know that Tracy also had a note here, and I'll make it clear in the response.
Right.
There-
I'm not bringing this up to be difficult.
Well,
I'm not
before-
bringing up that I want to talk about ADUs again to be difficult. I just really want to come to a consensus.
And I get that, that's what,
So, I
that's
just hope
what
we can have a
would all like.
conversation.
However, I just want to make sure that it's clear that there is no discussion about standalone ADUs anywhere in the code,
Oh, that was
because
clarified.
it's
That got
not included
clarified
in
for
there.
me. So thank you. We clarified that at the last meeting, and I felt a lot better at the last meeting after learning that, so thank you. Okay, so the document that you wrote that was helpful, that is also printed and copied for us on here, we received it in an email form. The section about ADUs. There's a really nice sentence in there. It says, the zoning working group had conversations related to ADUs and concluded that the proposed code was a good compromise. That would allow ADUs under certain circumstances. And I think this is specifically what the circumstances are, correct? Specifically, a single-family dwelling attached to a single-family dwelling. So I'm gonna just clarify the word attached. So ADUs in our current draft are attached to a single-family dwelling. They're not internal.
They could be.
They could be.
So in
Okay.
some instances, people will say, I don't want to put an addition on my structure, but I would like to convert my basement. And that, of course, requires meeting New York State Building
Okay,
Code
so
for access.
that's where I started to lose my understanding again, because that was what you had said, and I'm not bringing this up to be difficult, I promise.
Don't apologize.
That you clearly stated at the last meeting that we talked about ADUs, that they could be internal. But what is throwing me here is that the compromise that was reached in this paragraph says that they were single-family dwellings attached. So, I mean, to me, the word attached means added on or attached to. Attached doesn't mean internal. So I feel like this contradicts, they don't match.
So if you have the code in front of you, we can take a look at the code. So this is in 551-26, accessory uses, accessory dwelling unit, this is A. It reads 1 ADU is permitted per lot.
Give
me the page number.
Page number might be a little bit.
So on mine, it's 85, so it's in the 80s. And the second requirement.
Yep, I have that highlighted right there.
The reason that in my response I put that was that oftentimes that's what we're hearing the concern about. Is it attached or detached? And so this is on me that I didn't also include this part of it. But if you look at that second item
Right.
for the requirements, it says an ADU may be fully enclosed within the existing principal structure or attached to the existing principal structure. Detached ADUs, whether in new or existing structure, are prohibited. So that's the key. Is that the code was structured so that it would not allow for detached accessory dwelling units.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to explain. I don't mind the attached piece at all. What I have a concern about is the internal piece. And the reason I have a concern about the internal piece is because our old code had no ADUs at all. We had nothing.
It actually would allow detached. It allows for two principal structures in the RE district. So you could perhaps have 2 single-family homes or 2 two-family homes on a parcel.
Okay, but it didn't allow for attaching and internal.
It actually, in many ways, does, because it doesn't say that you can't have 2 kitchens. This code seeks to clarify.
I guess what I'm saying is that we've gone from ADUs that, in our old code, we didn't have a lot of code that supported ADUs, which is why we're working on this ADU draft, right? And it seems like we're going from not a lot of support for ADUs at all in our old code to just, it seems like a big jump to me.
So keep it, yep, if you don't mind.
And I just feel like that big jump, there's a scale. I was talking with someone at a meeting the other day, and they were like, there's a scale here. And so I guess I feel like there's an opportunity here for the board to discuss what we're comfortable with and where we could maybe necessarily find a happy place that we could all maybe drive that car, right? And not have the CD player, but we're still driving the car, and we're all, as board members, we're all pretty happy.
Yeah, I think the important thing to remember about this is that the existing code dates from 1992 and hadn't,
totally.
and hadn't been updated
yes.
with the comprehensive
Yes.
plan updates that occurred after that.
So
now we have this comprehensive plan that talks about the desire for the community to have ADUs. And of course, we hear different opinions from the community, and for us, when...
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm against ADUs.
Yeah.
You have said this is an evergreen code. So if we started small with ADUs, we could always grow bigger.
So
And we could go in the other direction too. We could,
well, if I could ask, so what do you propose?
So I have a suggestion, and we can move it on the scale in any direction that you feel comfortable with, but I'm really gonna ask the group to think thoughtfully about how we could maybe come to a compromise on this. We had a really good discussion months ago about conversions of single-family homes into doubles, into 2 families. And we all sort of grappled with where do we feel comfortable in allowing that? How, square footage was a sort of a vehicle that we used to come to an agreement. And I'm sure we could debate whether or not taking a single family and doing an internal inside that was 600 square feet, whether it's an ADU or whether it's actually turning it into a double. Like I'm sure we could talk about the minute details of how they're different. I don't really see them to be too different. And so I guess what I'm saying is the board really, am I making sense?
Yes and no.
Heidi's looking, Heidi, is this making sense?
Yes, also yes and no.
Okay, well, so let me stop and
Heidi, I'll let you talk first.
Okay. Okay, so, now I'm confused.
So
When-
we came to an agreement.
Right.
Yeah, sorry.
Let her, right, we came to the agreement about allowing a single family being turned into a two-family, given it has a certain,
Square footage.
square footage, right? And that is a two-family, that means there are walls between each thing, there are separate electric, there's separate all of the things. An indwelling ADU is like, I think, how Jill explained, turning your basement into a bedroom, turning it into a place for mom or whoever.
A separate
Right.
living unit.
A separate,
Has a kitchen, bathroom, and a bedroom.
no. Yes?
Yes?
Yes, okay,
It's a separate unit,
yes,
living unit,
right, but it's are contained within the original structure.
yes.
Yes.
And so would be converting a single family into a two-family, okay.
Yes, and there have been, there have been questions surrounding this. And when you're creating a two-family, there's no limitation on the size. So if I say that I want to build a two-family in a district where it's permitted, there's nowhere in the code where it says it can only be 2,000 square feet. We're saying that this is strictly an accessory use to a principal structure, that being a single-family home, and we are placing parameters on that, being 650 square feet and one bedroom.
Which is great, because,
So, and the focus is the accessory part.
sure, it's making it small, which is making it attainable. It's making it, a smaller unit, which we might not get at with the code, when we convert a single family into two family, because what you're saying is that there is no requirement for the square footage that you would convert it.
Not for conversion, because we had the discussion about conversion, and we want them to be a minimum of 15 square feet, because we contemplated that 1,500 square feet is something that a family would reside in, and there was discussion about attracting more families to the village.
Sure.
So 650 square feet is very limiting, right? The odds of a family living in that are slim to none, and the intent is to have one bedroom, so that it truly is something that's accessory to that principal use.
So, I guess my thought was and I know, I do understand now, thank you for explaining, just like the subtle differences between the two, because I do think that they are pretty subtle. What the board was comfortable with the conversion of a single family to a two-family was limiting it to homes that were 3,000 square feet. So what I was hoping we could consider tonight is using that same set of parameters around just the internal ADUs. Set a 3,000 square foot parameter around putting in a 600 square foot ADU in a home. It was something that we agreed on. I thought it would be a strategy or something that we could come to consensus on. It was what we were comfortable with. And this wouldn't change at all the external ADUs. This is just a suggestion for your consideration, of course, for internal ADUs.
So I just want to make sure I understand this time.
Yes.
So are you asking that we consider allowing internal ADUs of 650 square feet in homes that only have an overall square footage of 3,000?
Yes, so the
Okay.
exact same thing that we
Same
applied
parameters.
to
The
the
two-
conversion.
To a two-family?
Right, that
Okay.
we could use that to consider for ADUs. Internal ADUs, not external. External, if you meet the setbacks and all that,
Well, for my own understanding, can I ask why?
well, because I'm trying to get at not letting all of the toothpaste out of the tube at once. I think that it gives
Well,
us some sort of way to allow to start this in our community, because there's, right, Jill, you've mentioned that, and we've heard from residents that this is something that we need to start building in our community, that this size home really suits a unique situation or a perspective, right? And I feel like this strategy perhaps would get at allowing the start of that without letting all the toothpaste out of the tube.
I guess I'm having trouble following some of the logic, because I think that the heart of it is, what is the concern? Why are we hesitant on that? The reason why I'm saying that is a couple fold. One is, at what point then, okay, so if it's attached, are we then going to call that internal and then say that, well, hold on a minute, now that you've attached that, that's internal and it's under 3,000 square feet, therefore you really can't allow it because we've only allowed for 3,000 and up. You know, is that something, like, at what point is that retroactive?
I didn't follow any.
I didn't follow it either.
Right, so let's say you have,
Let's say your house is
2,000
2,800
square feet. It's 2,000 square feet. You add on an ADU that's attached, right? And that's 650, which means your home is now 2,650 square feet.
Yeah, I guess I was just asking your consideration for
Well,
only the internal ADU.
Well, I guess, let me get to the
Okay.
end. Your house is now 2,650 square feet. Since that's attached,
But the principal was not. The principal structure was not.
at what point does the principal structure, like,
I think at the time that,
so like if somebody else buys it?
I want to unpack a little bit more because I want to fully understand so that I can perhaps suggest, is there a difference between, let's say, an 1,800 square foot single family home, converting a portion of their home, not attaching anything, converting a portion to a 650 square foot accessory dwelling unit, and a 3,000 square foot one doing the same thing? Are the impacts
there's no
different?
difference. I think that the 3,000 square foot puts some sort of cap on it, and it allows for us to start in a place. It's a starting place. That's the
You're already here.
I can tell you right now, like, I just as a reminder, I know the folks in Manlius are relaxing the regulations on ADUs because what they currently have is actually allows for more space than we have, and nobody's built anything out there. So
We're not Manlius, but I understand
this is
that.
true, but Manlius is also looking at a lot of development pressure, and if
So that's good. I mean, that's good feedback. They are refining. So
Yeah, they're
they
like
started,
double what we're allowing.
Right. So they're starting in a way. I guess is in a way that I'm suggesting that we do start, like maybe a little bit more refined, and then they're relaxing. So I kind of like Manlius' style. that
Right,
You're bringing up.
so my point is, why not learn from them and allow for more then? Because if they're not seeing it, then maybe if we are saying that we
I'd like
do
to
want
just
to
try
allow.
first here.
I think I'm hearing a lot of the same feedback, and I think what I'm hearing, Emily, is, first of all, ADUs that were always allowed were just building a one-bedroom apartment, whether it was attached or internal. So one-bedroom apartments. Now we're calling them ADUs, and we've limited the size.
And there's a bunch of other requirements in here as well.
I know. But maybe start with limiting people. It's like 0 to 100, all the toothpaste, any home anywhere in the entire village is eligible. That, I think, is too much. Can we start it and get our feet wet by limiting it to?
Or could I ask you where, this was just a suggestion that I came up with. I mean, is there another suggestion might you offer that,
So I guess for me, I'm still not sure what the fear is. What are we
I don't know
afraid
either.
of? That,
Listening to our residents aren't really excited about
Yeah,
it.
well, let me put this, because I did receive a lot of feedback and obviously participate in 2 rounds of public outreach. And so what I'm hearing is an elimination of allowing someone to convert space inside their house. And I think ultimately what will happen then is if somebody desires to have an ADU, they will put an attachment on their house, which I think then we get into a situation where we heard concerns about people saying we don't want things attached to our house, and you would be eliminating that opportunity for someone to create that space within an existing structure. So I think that there's a danger to saying, to limiting the ability to create that in an existing structure, because that's another opportunity to have minimal impact on what we're viewing at the sidewalk. And that was a concern for folks, not only for the conversion of single families into two families, but any sort of changes. What am I seeing at the sidewalk in terms of design? So that's how we structured the accessory dwelling units for attached, that they had to be attached, and they couldn't be before the front line.
Yeah, I mean, strong design standards are no doubt super important to the attached, and I very much appreciate that comment. I'm just trying to be thoughtful, and I'm trying to do this in a balanced way.
Slow.
And it's not. There's nothing that I'm afraid of. I think that you asked that a question, Adam. I just don't know what the causation, the effects are of, because we haven't had any. Well,
Well, it sounds like that's what the fear is.
We do have some that were not, that were put in without, there are a few ADUs in this village that were just, people went ahead and put them in, no matter where they live. However, I'm going to address something that Tracy's trying to get to. I have also had conversations with people in residents in this community who happen to work in the field of planning, and their comments were, you didn't go far enough with this code, and I don't understand why you're not allowing standalone ADUs. I've also heard from another one of these planners who lives in this village. I don't see a problem with this because, first of all, it costs $250 per square foot to add anything on. Nobody's going to pay that kind of money to put an addition into their house. And then the third person, and they had no problem, I asked specifically, what issues do you see with this in our code? And their comment was, I do not see any issues with this. And the last person doesn't see issues either and did not give me the feedback about the cost. So I understand that Tracy has had conversations with people. We've all had conversations too. We're trying to find a place that meets in the middle for this. And the middle being nothing at all, and let's allow people to build external, standalone on their property, or tiny houses, or all of those. This is meant to be a compromise. So Tracy, I know you're waiting to talk, so I'm going to be quiet.
Well, I was just
We'll come back to you in just a minute.
I was just clarifying, I'm focused on the internal, because I didn't realize we were having internal ones. What regulations are on them now? Do they have to have a separate entrance?
In terms of, is this something that would be allowed today? So if somebody is converting their basement to livable space, that requires them to provide egress, which is a building code thing. And as I've mentioned before here, I know just enough about building code to be dangerous. So that would require a building permit because they'd be obviously changing the size of a window.
I know what an egress is. Excellent.
Okay.
So
Entrance, a completely, I guess, not until we got into this conversation did I start thinking, are they completely separate? Like walls coming in, a
No,
side
so
door?
you'll notice
I mean,
again in the regulations in 551-26, for attached ADUs, a minimum of 25% of the total wall area of the floor or ceiling of the ADU must be fully connected to a wall, floor, or ceiling of the principal residential structure. An ADU must be connected by utilizing common structural elements, including any combination of shared walls, floor, ceiling, or roofs. So there's elements that are connected to, so that, and it's not necessarily that you would require a separate entrance.
Okay, so an internal.
There are folks that will put an attached ADU onto their structure that it might be connected by a bedroom door, for instance. I've seen this in the course of my career where somebody put an addition on and they had a small kitchen area and a bedroom and a livable area that it was just a bedroom door to provide privacy for their mother. So just because there is the requirement that it be attached, but there is nothing in the code that says you have to have a separate entrance.
Should there be?
I don't know that we want there to be. I think we want people to make that decision if they feel that they want to have the entrance, like I said, just a door, or if they want to have that separate entrance. And then we're also getting into a building code conversation, which, that's not something that I'm prepared to speak to. But again, these requirements based on not only the experience of our consultant Fisher, the experience of myself, and again, the zoning working group where we had Pat Gooch from the county and Joe Pavenzi from GTC, had this conversation. We had the land use board chairs. We took in feedback, and this was what we came up with to compromise. Again, as the mayor mentioned, we've got folks that said we haven't gone far enough, and folks that we said we're going too far. And so the goal of any good requirement is to find that middle ground that satisfies that and is appropriate for the village. And we think that this is.
And so when you say that you didn't go far enough, the thing that you pulled back from, in terms of ADU, are that they can't be.
I think there's two
Detached.
elements that we pulled back from, and we had questions about this, and there was a discussion that perhaps in the future. And I actually had an architect who I know fairly well bring this up with me, and I said, maybe that's down the road. Who knows? Of course, we pulled back from the detached ADU, but also there's an argument to be made that carriage houses are appropriate for that accessory dwelling unit. So if you're thinking, we've talked a lot about preserving the character of the village of Fairport, that's part of our character, carriage houses, right? And so because we did not feel comfortable going that next step to say you could convert your carriage house, that top portion, into livable space, this again was that compromise. This was the toe in the water, so to speak, and perhaps down the road. I had an architect say to me, hey, how come you didn't go the route of carriage houses? That really would have made sense from a design standpoint. And I explained to them about the conversations that we had as a community.
Jill, just a thought, and maybe this is something that you could get back to us on. It doesn't even, I don't even answer tonight. But if you were to pull back one more, my 3,000 square foot clearly is not popular here tonight. What would you suggest? And I know that you did a great job. Heidi brought up, I'm unhappy with the RV code, and you went back and you did your thinking and you came back with some sort of compromise for us to review tonight. Would it be possible to have you do the same with ADUs? Is there a way to pull back, or how would you?
I'm just going to add, we are 2.5 months, 3 months down the road, and I will say, yeah, Jill, if you want to put something together, but
I guess that's what I was just asking.
I'm going to go back and say,
for us to consider, and we don't have to do
well,
that at
I'm
all.
not-
but
I'm not
I-
sure-
before you do that work,
Can I
I would
just jump in? Kind of just to jump on what you had said earlier, Julie, and Jill, what you were just saying about the carriage houses and the ADUs and where this whole thing started with Emily talking about the proposed code was a good compromise, right? So the compromise is what is in this code right now, because we could have gone the
Yes.
route that said,
The detached.
we want to do the detached,
Yep.
we want to allow it everywhere, we want to allow carriage houses, or we want to do none of these things. This is the middle. This is the compromise. And I don't think that if we pull back anymore, that closes a door. That completely closes a door, and it closes an opportunity for housing and for living options within the village,
Well, it was a compromise that the zoning working group made. I guess what I
based on our feedback.
Not our feedback.
No,
It was the feedback from the
In the village,
community.
yeah.
I guess there's, this particular code section, there's nothing in it that I would change. And I say that because we had conversations about 800 square feet. We had conversations about 400 square feet. And there comes a point where, are you just writing something in code for the sake of writing it, or can it actually be put into practice? And so 650 square feet seems appropriate. to have a one-bedroom with small kitchen, small area to perhaps entertain your friends. So I would not recommend changing this portion of the code because I think this is the compromise.
Is there, I'm not trying to be difficult. I do want you to know that.
But let me just
But
say, you guys have had all these conversations. This is our first time asking these questions. So when you say, this is the compromise, and we're coming saying, because this is our first discussion, really, about the written code.
This is a discussion between you and the rest of the board. There has been plenty of opportunity over 3 months to discuss this code.
I remember there being a point in time when ADUs were being considered in one particular zone of the code.
I don't recall ever having that conversation. When I've been before the village board, we've talked about this portion of accessory dwelling units covering the entire village.
That was never my understanding.
That's been in the code
been
since the
beginning.
first draft. The thing that, for me, though, I think is unfair to ask Jill to do is to make changes and not provide the concerns by which to address those changes. All we're saying is, we don't know.
My
We're
concern is
unsure
that
of
I
what it
don't know
is.
what the outcome will be, and
So how does one adjust to that?
So this is
Right? Like,
this is
it
logical.
feels like a moving target.
It seems logical in that I am asking for us to come to a consensus on creating an ADUs in our community on a smaller scale, and then if we need refinement, as you have said many times, that this is a evergreen, I think is what the mayor said when she first started talking about this. This is a live document. We can always make changes as we see fit, that there is opportunity down the road to do that. So I think but Adam, I think,
Well,
I
what Adam
think
is
what
saying
I've
is you don't
made.
have the consensus of the rest of the
Well,
board.
Okay,
Well, no, what
but he did say you're not presenting a reason why, and I do think I'm presenting the reason why, because I don't know what the cause will be.
Right, so if we want to make an adjustment to something, you need to establish what the parameters are so that you can figure out what to change. And so right now, if the only concern out there is, I don't know what this means, it's a practical impossibility for us to have a productive conversation on it because we don't know really what we're addressing. Does that make sense? So in other words, how do we get to something and tweak something if we don't know that's going to satisfy anything, right? We can't look at something and just say, oh, great, that hits what those concerns are, because we don't know what the concerns are. It just seems unfair to ask our planning department to do that.
I just have a different viewpoint on this, and I don't know how else to ask the board to consider my concerns. I've asked in every possible way that I know how to ask, so I don't have it's fine, I don't have your support. I see that very clearly.
Well, I mean,
I don't
it's
know,
hard for me to figure out how to discuss when I'm not sure what the concerns are. I understand
Now
that
we're
you're
just talking
uncertain
in
about
circles.
what the future means with the change.
I think development always there's always effects of development, and we don't know what. I think it's a fair and reasonable and logical. I don't know why this is so difficult for any one of us to understand on the board tonight, but that's okay. I don't have anything else for tonight about this.
Okay. So I'm gonna go back through one more time, and then Tracy can, do you support the code currently the way it is with ADUs?
I currently support the code the way it is with,
Did
for
I have a
ADUs.
chance to talk about
I'm
my
gonna come to-
concerns?
I just said I'm
Oh,
coming to you.
okay.
I'm just I'm walking through, and we're heading to you. I just said I'll be right with you. Currently, do you have any concerns about the parking associated with ADUs?
No.
Okay. Adam?
The parking, no.
Okay. I don't either. So Tracy, please share with us what your concerns are.
I'm feeling the same way Emily is, that to slow it down, I would like to see the ADUs limited to the residential transitional neighborhoods. And I think if I understand what I'm asking for, I think I'd like to ask for a special permit for any ADU. A special permit would trigger a sign out front and a review, and it would alert the neighbors to any sort of changes. And then wouldn't there be a public meeting where you could get comments from your neighbors?
There is.
What?
There is a public comment period with any land use board, any special application, so area variance special permit, you're correct.
So that's already in there. If someone wanted to do an internal one-bedroom apartment, right now they would have to come get a special permit?
No, so are we talking about existing code or the proposed code?
Proposed.
Proposed. Well, I asked this because we've had several conversations where I think there's been confusion about what's in the existing code and what's in the proposed.
Oh,
So I
there's
just
a lot
wanted
of
to clarify.
confusion.
So in the proposed code, it's permitted as of right. Now, let's suppose that somebody wanted to create an addition at the rear of their structure, and their lot is perhaps smaller. Maybe they don't meet the setbacks. So again, if they're not meeting those design standards and those lot area and yard requirements, they can't just construct that attached dwelling unit. They have to go before the zoning board of appeals for an area variance. So in many ways, there already is a public process involved if they're not meeting the code requirements. And that's like anything. So if somebody comes in and the use is permitted as of right, and they are meeting those requirements, whether they're building a single-family home, a two-family home that's allowed in that particular district, and they're meeting the setbacks, they're meeting the lot coverage, they can construct something without their neighbor's input.
I understand that. I guess I was asking not to have it just an absolute carte blanche permitted use, but to tag on a special permit to ADUs. It was a two-parter. Limit it to starting at our residential transitional neighborhoods, not every single-family home in the village, and perhaps consider as a starting point also having a special permit.
And that's something that the board can discuss. I think it's appropriate to have it allowed throughout the village.
I guess that's what I was getting at, but we got sidetracked, was that I originally thought when we were talking ADUs, at some point in this conversation over the months that we've been talking about this, that it had started in the residential transitional neighborhood. I don't know at one point if it did morph, or at what point it did morph into.
I think you may be referring to the existing code, where essentially it does allow for accessory dwelling units, and as I mentioned, the construction of principal structures. You can have more than one in the RE district. Many of the parcels that are found in the RE district are included in the RTN district. So it's something that's already allowed in the existing code. So our suggestion was to allow it throughout the village. I can tell you that I have an accessory dwelling unit in my neighborhood, and I'm not in the RTN district.
So they would have had to get a special permit to put in that in-law apartment or whatever it is.
No,
It's non-conforming?
it's non-conforming.
It's non-conforming.
So we're creating something a container for those things, instead of being non-conforming, to have something to conform to.
Perhaps, but I think the larger question is, should accessory dwelling units be allowed throughout the village in a form where they're attached to the principal structure or they're found within that principal structure? And again, this is only single-family homes, and we concluded through conversations that it was appropriate to take that action.
Real quick, Jill, so just make sure I understand, an RE, a detached accessory dwelling unit, is allowed by right in code currently.
It is, as long as you're meeting those lot area and yard requirements. You'll notice many of the parcels on East Church are located in the RE district, and they're quite large.
How many permits have been pulled within the past 5 or 10 years, do we know, for an accessory dwelling unit?
0. from my time being here. I had one person inquire about it, and they are located on East Church, and nothing came to fruition.
Thanks.
Perhaps getting at what Emily was concerned with, I guess I also see that concern of taking it a different way, not having a maximum of 3,000 feet before you can have an internal, but at some point having a minimum size of the existing home before you can put on a detached, or you can, put on, internal just still seems loosey-goosey, build it if you want it. And you don't have to ask permission, and that's okay. Is that kind of a
Well, it still
correct
has
statement?
limitations, so it's still limited to 650 square feet. You still need to provide the parking. You still need to meet everything that's within the code. So it's not loosey-goosey. There are still code requirements, and a permit would need to be issued for that.
Okay. If you were going to do an external attached, a size requirement of the minimum house, would that be something you'd want to consider?
You should be talking to the other board members of, do we feel that,
Well, you've already all agreed with it, so it's really,
Well-
I'm
well-
just kind of throwing out what I want to say.
that,
Why would
that's,
you want a minimum?
the whole point is that it's no longer Jill's code, it's our code. So you need to either present something that convinces the three people who are sitting on this board right now who support it the way it is to change their minds, or we're going to move on in just a minute. But it's not up to Jill to go and propose that.
I was just wondering if there should be some sort of minimum size requirement on the existing home.
Heidi, do you think there should be a minimum size requirement on the home?
No, and I don't. If there's, what would be the reason for having a minimum?
Are we talking about, again, for the?
For the internal?
For internal or detached? Or
I was
attached.
thinking
Attached.
more attached.
Why?
Or would that, I'm just thinking out loud, or would that be addressed through the other design requirements where it has to be off the back of the house, has to be off the side, has to be off of that?
And it still has to meet the lot requirements for setbacks. Do you think that we should attach a size to it?
No.
Adam, do you think that we should attach a size to it?
Sorry, we're saying, we're tossing out the idea of a minimum size to an existing building for creating an ADU?
Yeah.
Moving on.
Move on, okay. How about owner occupied with internal? Is that something you people would consider, or whatever?
I don't think it's necessary.
I think it's really difficult to enforce those. I think Jill made a good point here in her second paragraph. Yeah, I'm not, is there a particular reason for that?
These things have been brought to me, as I understand them. With the accessory dwelling unit, the exterior one, I mean, everyone's like, well, you put on an extra room for your kids or this or that. I think there's the perception in the, by our residents that this, if it's not just income property, if I have a rental unit now and I'm gonna add on and get a second rental unit, there's the belief that if it was an owner-occupied situation and it was the owner that wanted to do that, the owner also would be there trying to, maintain that or, find it I think there's the belief that it would help with the neighborhood, keeping neighbors as a neighborhood, And if the person who's renting your one-bedroom apartment is very undesirable, then the landlord wouldn't want, or the owner wouldn't want that there either.
That's assuming the owner is a good owner and assuming that the owner is going to be doing all of the upkeep and doing all the things. The assumption goes both ways. The assumption can say, yes, well, because I think it's owner occupied or it should be owner occupied, that the conclusion is that it will be well maintained. But have you ever had a terrible landlord and been a good tenant? And have a landlord that does not keep up your space and does not keep up and does not maintain your building? I'm saying it just goes both ways.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to list off specific houses, but I can list, there's a property that's on Miles that is a single-family home, and the code enforcement department gets regular calls about it because the person who owns the home and lives in the home does not keep it up to the standards of their neighborhood. So I think it can go both ways. That you might have the owner living on the property, but as what was just stated, they might not maintain their property.
It's a start, it's something, I understand that, and not all landlords are bad. Some are phenomenal. And I don't want to get into the percentage of good or bad or whatever.
I would tell you it goes both ways for single-family homeowners as well.
Okay, no owner occupied with ADUs. Okay, I think that's about all I have on that topic at this time.
Okay. Has anything changed your perception of where we need to be on this?
Nope. Ready to move on?
Adam?
Like I said, I was
Okay.
fine with detached, so I think this is a good compromise.
Okay. I think it's a good compromise as well.
I don't think there's been a compromise. I think it's as is the way we have received it. I understand it to be the zoning working group, so, but I understand that you're not willing to compromise on some of the
No, the
several-
code itself is a compromise
I understand.
from both sides
There's a
in the
range of
community.
compromise, and I guess,
I mean, ultimately, we do all need to vote on this as
Yeah.
as a full vehicle. And we all need to be comfortable with voting on the entire vehicle.
Okay.
So I was hoping that we could reach some sort of an agreement on this that that I was more comfortable with, and Trustee Brink seems to be similarly aligned and has similar alignment to my concerns.
Okay.
So if in between now and I don't know when, if there's a suggestion that, I know that it wasn't a popular thing for me to say or to ask Jill to think about a way that we could pull back just a little bit in the ADU area. I'd be curious to hear what her suggestions were, and if there is something that comes up, I'd be all ears to hearing it. I
Okay.
realize there isn't something right now, but that doesn't mean there isn't something ever. I'll leave the door open.
What other areas? I don't think Adam, Heidi, or I have any other areas of the code that we have concerns about.
just a question to help understand how you got here, because we were not involved in a lot of those discussions that, with the working group. Curious, how did you come up with the residential transitional neighborhood? It just seems very large, and it seems to me when I look at the comprehensive plan, it was more focused more around the downtown area. So
That
I
the
know,
comprehensive plan was focused on the downtown area?
I think in the transitional areas.
I
How
think
did
it's
you
it's a name. It's not a, I'll let
Yeah.
Jill describe it.
Well, how did you decide, or how did the working group decide?
and-
What
and I
was your
wanna-
thinking?
I want to reference a couple documents here. So the one that actually details, because I hear you saying that you're concerned that the existing acreage of RTN is quite large, and that comparable. So if you look, I don't know if you have this document in front of you, because I did include it with the zoning code, the draft code, but this is the summary document. And if you look at pages 8 and 9, it talks about the existing in terms of acreage and the percentage of the total village, and then it talks about the proposed. And the RTN district is largely made up of the RC, RD, RE, and LCR districts. So when you're looking at 6 residential districts and you're reducing that number to 3, it may seem that one district encompasses more property than another. But if you look at the data, it's not the case.
Jill, this is just a silly question. You know the salmon colored area, the general neighborhood area there, which there's a little, when you're heading down Main Street on the, east section of Main Street, there's a little cutout that's salmon coming off of Main Street. Like the salmon colored area is kind of a
Yep.
weird shape. What is that little?
That would be the OSED parking lot.
Okay, that's what I was.
And I know that our existing zoning map splits parcels, so you could have one parcel and have multiple districts, and that's not best practice.
Yeah.
So, because it struck me as, I was interested in, because everything else around there is downtown, right? Main Street is, when you go down Main Street, it's zoned downtown district, right? Except for when you get to the OSED parking lot. I didn't know that it was OSED parking lot. Is there a reason for that?
Again, so best practice is to not have a property divided
That's what you were saying.
in zoning districts, yes. Many of the uses that are allowed in the downtown district are also allowed in the general neighborhood.
Say that again. I'm trying to, say that again. It's best practice to not have.
So if we have a parcel, we
Jen Bean's
want things to be clean and easy for not
Okay,
only
okay.
staff, but the public to understand.
Okay.
So we don't want parcels to be split by 2 different
Different
zoning
zones.
districts. Correct. So, it would be inappropriate for me to have, something that was.
And so that whole area to the east is all
Oh, one person.
part of that parcel.
Correct.
I gotcha.
If you think back to when Mike Foligno was here and we were talking about changing
Yes.
the business or the overlay district.
This was actually related to the changes that we made with LCR, and there were a couple of parcels that we took the opportunity to quote-unquote fix because they were split between 2 zoning districts, which allowed for some things to happen in one portion of the property and some things to happen in another, because our code did not specify how we were to handle
Right.
parcels that had split districts.
Some properties split municipalities.
Um,
That's a totally
They actually
different thing.
don't.
Oh, wait.
They don't.
Doesn't we don't have to talk
Yeah.
about it. But I thought that the 1,000 Turkel.
No, those are separate parcels.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought they did.
It was brought to my attention that with that 3,000 square foot house that could be divided they chose to into 2 families at 1,500 square feet. Can we say somewhere existing 3,000? Because don't you have the potential now to, I got 2,800, so I'm gonna put on an addition of my family room, and then a year later, now I'm, 3,100 square feet, now I can divide it. I don't know, there might be a sneaky person out there.
I'll let the board discuss that.
Well, I'm seeing confusion on your face, John, so I guess I would like to get legal.
Yeah, I'm just
Guidance.
I was trying to work the scenario out. I should speak to this.
At the adoption of the, I
You're
think,
basically setting a cutoff so that no property could ever be converted if at the point in time within which the code was adopted, it didn't have a square footage that was 3,000 square feet.
Because I think when we've discussed this, there's 26 properties in the entire village that currently are 3,000 square feet or larger. So it's like those 26 would be the only ones that would be considered for division into a double. because you had decided the good family size would be 1,500. But is there any way in the code, the way it's written, for people just to add on till they get 3,000 and then start dividing them?
Theoretically, somebody could do that. They still are beholden to the lot area and yard requirements and lot coverage and all of those items. We had discussions initially with the village board, Chris and myself, about the expense that it can take to divide a property, 3,000 square foot, into two 1,500 square foot units. Beyond that, that section of code does have requirement as to how that structure can change. So we heard from the public that the important part was what they saw. And we gathered that information because we know that there's a lot of non-conforming structures in the existing RB district. And when you walk by them, you have no idea that they're a 2-family, a 3-family, whatnot. And so that portion of the code was structured to ensure that from the public right-of-way, you could not tell that that property had been altered. So yes, there is that opportunity for someone to divide that property if they're 3,000 square feet. Could you presumably add on over the course of time? Yes, but you are still beholden to the design requirements, the lot area requirements, et cetera.
So it's technically a loophole, but probably we shouldn't worry about it.
Nothing within the code is a loophole. We write code and we are clear, and we provide opportunity for people to meet their requirements at that particular time. And nothing is incredibly easy or a loophole within the code. I've heard that term bandied around, and I'm curious as to what all these loopholes are. But there are opportunities for people to have their dream come true within the parameters of the code. So if the village board decides that they don't like a portion of the code, we can go back and tinker with that if there's consensus to make those changes. But I'm presenting you the code that was put together by not only the zoning working group, but obviously part of that was community feedback.
Thank you. I think I still am looking for some clarification on the 2-story building heights in downtown with a variance for the potential of 4 stories. This might be public engagement, and it might have something to do with the format changes of the old code to the new code. Because during the public engagement, it was presented as stories, 2-story or 3-story. And in the public engagement, overwhelmingly came out and said 3-story max, never 4. So I'm curious, and so first of all, why don't we just do what the residents want? But the other part is 3 stories with a special permit. And then it turns into like heights and math equations and how high this high. And it's like, well, we were talking a 1, 2, 3, and now you turn it into 55 feet. And that's where I think it's getting lost in the transition.
I actually think we've written it quite simple and really put into code what the expectations are from the community. And I think saying that we heard 2 and 3 stories overwhelmingly is not the case. We heard that from folks, but we also heard from some folks, why isn't it 4 stories? Why isn't it 5 stories? So for us, the reason that it was crafted as a special permit, as I mentioned in the response, is that we could then put a limit on the height of that structure. So the special permit says 55 feet, and the planning board evaluates based on the criteria, vistas, how is the height of the adjacent buildings, does it fit in, et cetera. So the special permit gives the planning board that opportunity to review it and also sets the expectation for the developer. So if you're going to go 4 stories, you have to be set back. If you're going to go 4 stories, another option would be to have that 4 stories set back further. So there are very specific criteria that a developer would have to meet and then be reviewed by the planning board in a public setting. I've heard the discussion about having it as an area variance, and I think the danger with that is that there's no limit on the height. So somebody could perhaps come with an application that says, I want a structure that's 70 feet tall. And they're going to evaluate it based on the area variance criteria, not the criteria that, of course, is in our code that we've developed specific to this height question. So I think the more reasonable approach is to utilize a special permit process to ensure that we're capping that height at 55 feet and that we're also reviewing it under criteria that's unique to that request. So we're saying special permit criteria and then more. So when we're talking about the importance of character and relationship with other buildings, the special permit along with this criteria gives us that advantage.
I guess I didn't understand how come if it's in the code for the 55 feet, that wouldn't apply to a variance.
You may have 55 feet, a max of 55 feet through the special permit process. If that portion of the code was not in it and there was no limit, there was no upper limit, so this 55 feet being the upper limit, somebody could apply for whatever height of building they would like.
So the 55 feet limit is if you do go and get a special permit.
Correct.
What's the limit, curious, what's the limit without the permit?
Let me find that piece of paper here. So without the special permit, we're talking 45 feet.
And that's what we talked about, that is typically 3 stories anyway.
Correct. The reason that we are providing not only stories but height is because somebody could have a single-story structure that's 12 feet, 13 feet in height, and say, well, you told me that I could be 3 stories, and next thing you know, you have an 80-foot building because their stories are large. So we have the stories and the height requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Emily, you had on your list special permits.
Yeah, I mean, it pertains to the heights on buildings.
So the special permit, I just want to make clear, is only for downtown for the height of buildings. If somebody was seeking to build a taller building in any other district and they were exceeding that limit, they would have to go for an area variance.
The special permit only pertains to downtown.
Correct.
It's the only one that contains the special permit process
go to
in the
4.
code, right?
To go to 4 stories and a max of 55 feet. In every other district, if you
But there's
just,
other district that you can get to 4. 4 is a,
The only other one is the industrial.
so
it's
the,
already, right,
correct. The-
industrial is 4 already.
It's 5, or isn't it? 5 and,
I think it might be.
It makes sense to me to have 4 right off the bat in industrial, like that's, no, I don't have an issue with that. So,
Are there any height requirements outside of the downtown?
Oh, I want to correct my comment. The general neighborhood is also
so 3
4
with a
stories
special
and,
permit, right?
correct. In every other district, there is a maximum for height. So for instance,
So, sorry,
Salmon.
so the downtown and the general neighborhood both have 3 with a special permit of 4.
correct.
Yes.
if you go to,
No, I've looked at this many times. I'm just.
So again,
for
What's the
Tracy.
question?
downtown district and general neighborhood district are following the same guidelines of 3 stories, special permit 4 with a max of 55 feet. Is that what you just explained?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I was even thinking about that.
Just a question. So those 2 zones have the same height requirements, or are zoned with the same height in mind.
Let me clarify too,
Yeah.
that the general neighborhood is limited to, that 4-story 55 is for non-residential mixed use.
Yeah.
So anything that's
Be a special
residential,
permit.
correct. Anything that's residential is limited to 3 stories and
Yeah.
40 feet.
Yeah.
And this is on
that's-
page 30.
That is fine. I do think that that's okay. It's the one thing is the downtown that I feel should be 3. It was not with a special permit of 4. I thought it should be 3 feet with a height of 45 feet. For just the downtown district was what I was really comfortable with, and leaving the 3 stories with special permit for 4 in the general neighborhood, and then the industrial at 4 is fine.
And then
Any thoughts about that?
And then if it plays out that it's limiting in some way, then this being an evergreen document, we could go back and look at it then.
And this is, this stems back to the survey, that, the survey was it is.
But
clean.
as I mentioned last time, the survey didn't dictate height, it asked for design.
Correct.
And so
But I think,
we got feedback that informed the design standards.
which was 3.
So are you asking us to reconsider the 3 stories in the downtown with the 4th?
Just the
Floors of
downtown, I
permit?
think would serve what our community has said that they would like. Just in the downtown district, 3 stories. Leave 4 okay with special permit in general neighborhood, 4 okay in industrial. In the survey.
I'm okay with it the way it is, with 3 stories and then 4 with a special permit in the downtown area. I'm okay with leaving it the way it is. Or as it's written in the update. I'm honestly okay with it being 4 with a permit for 5, but again, the 3 with the permit for 4 is the compromise.
It's just what our residents, I'm not speaking what I want
Yeah,
per
yeah.
se, I'm trying to speak for our residents. That's what they clearly wanted on the main street in the downtown, that's what they said.
I would agree with that. That's why I keep coming back to it.
So for me, I think it would actually erode our downtown. Because when you think about where downtown is, that's where the activity is. And that's communicated by the types of the buildings and the shape and the size of the buildings. It's just visually how people are oriented. And if what we do is say the taller buildings are not downtown, people are going to think that those areas are downtown. So to me, it feels like we're pushing people away from downtown by setting up design standards that de-emphasize Main Street.
To me, it's very simple. Our community and our residents have said that they want 3 stories on Main Street, and
Right. Well, and I'm saying there's a little bit of a
for
there's a conflict there, right? Saying that if I understand what you're saying they're okay with 4 stories in these areas, but not in a downtown area. And so, like I said, that's the conflict that's sort of set up here now, which is if we want to help our local businesses as much as we can, you emphasize where the downtown is. And so that's where I think the discussion is about. How do we take if that's what we say the community wants, there's a little bit of a tension there, and
there's even a section of the downtown that is general neighborhood. So there is an opportunity, that salmon color is, that little OSED parking lot is general neighborhood. So there's an opportunity for there, given the draft. But
man, you don't think 4 would stick out?
that's,
I mean, if you think it's fine there, then I'm wondering why it's not okay down the rest of Main Street.
I think it's fine in the industrial. I think that there's already visually, it would go visually with that industrial area as well as the transitional neighborhood.
Well, I guess, I mean, do you kind of see the point, though, where by doing that, we're de-emphasizing Main Street?
I don't, but
Let me
I
ask you a
don't.
question.
So, like, where's downtown Rochester?
I understand
Just pause
what you're
for 1
saying.
second. If it's a special permit, and let's say 20 years, 10 years down the road, somebody else has built a building in a spot. There's not very many spots to build a brand-new building, and it's not, as we could see from the DRI, it's not cost-effective to just go out and say, hey, I've got this money and I'm gonna add 3 stories or add 2 more stories to my building. If down the road, let's say that somebody constructed a 4-story building on our main street, and now there seems to be I like that building, I want to build another building just like that building. Does the planning board so this would go for planning board review. If they felt that it was not appropriate based on what else has already happened on the main street, could they turn it down?
They could. So as I've mentioned, the special permit, I liken it to a yes, maybe. And so they're utilizing the criteria that has been developed that talks about vistas and views, adjacent structures, sight lines, things like that. If they determine that wherever that proposed 4-story structure is, that it's inappropriate, they can deny it. Special permits do get denied.
So if there was a sudden proliferation, I had a resident say, oh, there's gonna be nonstop 4-story buildings everywhere you turn. Can the planning board stop that?
They could. I guess one of the things to keep in mind too is our design overlay district in many respects would allow somebody to contemplate a 4-story building. And we see that with the Diane Prince building. And so the design overlay district has been in code since I want to say maybe 2012, 2013. And since that time, I think we've entertained one request for a 4-story building. So that being said, that was entertained by the planning board. They chose to approve that based on, obviously, the special permit criteria, the site plan criteria that they took a look at. And so I think it's important to consider that when we're talking about height, we're talking about enclosure, which is one of the requirements that the planning board would use to evaluate that proposal. Are we creating an enclosed space? When we talk about great streets, we feel that they feel like a room. So think about some of the really cool streets that you've walked down in your lifetime. Street trees, right? And we talk about the streetscape, how we added street trees, and in 20, 30 years, they will create that enclosure, but the buildings help do that as well. We have data as architects and planners that tells us that a 1-to-1 ratio is appropriate to create that enclosure. And when I say 1-to-1, so if we have a 60-foot right-of-way, then we should be contemplating structures that are 60 feet tall. And a lot of municipalities do this. If you look at the main streets, downtowns, you want to have, as Trustee Banoski mentioned, you want to have your tallest buildings in the center, and that almost acts like this bell curve where the height is being reduced. Those tall structures give us a clue that that's the downtown. So if the desire is to only allow that in the general neighborhood, then you're shifting the focus of your main street. And then I don't know what those impacts would be in terms of livelihood of businesses, et cetera, because now you've relocated that main street where that focal point is of the municipality. So when we talk about the height of buildings, it's critical that we get it right. And in terms of what is appropriate and what's not, 60 foot would be your best bet to develop that enclosure. But we've heard comments and concerns about height from both sides, that we're not going tall enough, we're too tall. And so this is the same conversation that we've had on many topics. This portion of code, like all the other portions of code, is a compromise, taking in all of that feedback. But beyond that, also utilizing our expertise as professional planners that have been doing this for a long time, as to what is appropriate in the downtown area.
In the way that the code stands currently, our tallest buildings are in the industrial, which are not the center of our village.
But
Right, so it's a chance to-
different use.
Well,
The way I see it is it's a chance to address a design issue.
Now, I remember public feedback and going on the walks and going to the farmer's market, and what the residents were very concerned with was closing us in. We want to keep the open space of the village, hence the concept for a step back came from. You know, it's not this enclosure enveloped room. They liked the fact that it was open.
The enclosure part that I'm speaking of, that step back contributes to some of that. The area, and we have it in our current code that talks about having that building set back a bit to provide outdoor space. So a good example is the new building next to 58 South Main Street, 64 South Main Street, the coffee shop, that we have seating, outdoor seating. And so the proposed code is still supportive of having those elements, but it's creating a lively street presence and also creating that enclosure. So I, as a professional planner and in my experience, am recommending that the village board strongly consider that we have a 4-story, 55-foot maximum by special permit with the criteria included.
I have not been convinced that to change my support for this. So we can continue to talk about this, but right now, Heidi, Adam, and I support this, and as a compromise between the two items that Jill was talking about. Are there other areas that you wanted to talk with the board about?
Just to piggyback on this, now that it's fresh in my brain here, so in the Salmon area, the general neighborhood district, that can be 4 stories.
By special permit.
Okay, same,
Limit of
same
55
as
feet,
downtown.
correct.
Yep. What is it in industrial?
So in industrial, and this is on page 31, it's 4 stories, 52 feet.
Huh, okay.
So let's talk about that. The reason that we want to ensure that we're having taller structures there, the 4 stories, 52, and that's as of right, is because we know that industrial uses nowadays tend to build up. There are some that build lower, obviously, but we want to be supportive of that. So if you're going to have an industrial district, it's important to write code that's supportive of buildings like the Ledestria building or something that may come along the way.
So it's 4-story, but 3 feet less.
Correct.
Okay.
And again, permitted as of right, so no need for a special permit.
Ah, that's why you kept saying that. Okay.
I think one of the things, and I know I shouldn't be putting in my opinion here, but I'm going to. We want taller buildings on Main Street. We want the shorter buildings to be in industrial and other districts. When people come to our community, we want them to see our downtown. We don't want their eye to be driven to our industrial district. So yes, I hear that it's only 3 feet, but the building is definitely going to look very different based on the design standards that we've developed.
I was just trying to put all the heights together in one brain thought from all the colors. Let me see what else I have. Curious about the canopies in the signage. I'm trying to find the page that had that on there.
I think there's an explanation. So instead of sitting and going through the explanation, it's probably a discussion amongst the board of,
It's signs on canopies that are, it's signs on canopies that are not allowed.
no, there's,
There's no canopies allowed though either, right?
that's,
The signage structures. So if somebody wanted to put a canopy, they could do that as long as it's not on the public right of way, because that creates a whole scenario of issues. But we don't want signage on it.
So you could have a striped canopy
Correct.
without signage. It's specific.
Moonlight Creamery's out.
Well, Moonlight Creamery does have their sign on there.
That's a non-conforming sign,
So
so
it's
it continues to live and,
Moving forward.
yeah.
Okay.
And I actually have some background on the second part of that question about A-frames. A-frames are not allowed today. However, during the bridge being in the up position for 22 months, some leeway was given to merchants to be able to use A-frames because the village was trying to relax those standards so that they could advertise their businesses. And I think the same is kind of said to be true right now because of the other construction that's been happening on Main Street. But upon the completion of all that, and once we approve the code, or even if we don't approve that part of the code, if we stayed with the current code, enforcement will occur to have the A-frames. You can just leave it, just leave it. Thank you. Thanks for being here. So A-frames, it was trying to give businesses some leeway during a challenging time. But prior to that, it was regularly enforced and businesses were told to move that off of the sidewalk because it wasn't allowed in code.
I guess I have a question. In the transitional neighborhood, residential transitional neighborhood, why are townhouses allowed? I mean, I feel like we made a commitment that those would stay single family to our residents. So the only thing allowed that I can see in residential transitional neighborhood is whatever the rights are townhouses.
could you repeat that? We made a commitment that RTN would be single-family?
I don't remember that.
I thought to our residents that we would not be rezoning their neighborhoods from single family.
So RTN is this green colored.
Yep, got it.
Okay. It's never been a single-family district. The existing districts that compromise RTN have never been single-family districts. They've allowed multifamily and two-family.
So we're cutting back on all of those by only allowing townhouses?
That's not correct. So if we go to the use table,
I thought I had this. I'm on the use table.
and this is on page 63.
Yeah.
So let's look at the uses that are permitted in RTN, again being that green color. Let's start out with dwelling multifamily, 3-4 units. That's permitted. The next that's permitted is dwelling residential conversion from single family to two family, which we covered earlier. Dwelling single family is permitted. Dwelling townhouse is permitted. Dwelling two family is permitted. So these are all items that are largely existing in the current code. The RTN district, again, made up of RE, RC, RD, that allows for garden apartments and townhouses currently.
Okay. When I was talking to some of the leadership of the Public Arts Committee, just wondered, where did the language for the percent of the arts go? Did that get lost?
That's a City of Rochester element that's included when they do an infrastructure project. That's something that they set aside on their own. That was never discussed as part of this code.
But it was brought up, but you never discussed it to have it be included in this code?
We did not. And
Is it something that can be discussed in the future?
That's related specific to infrastructure projects for the city of Rochester. So if that's something that the village board would like to entertain and discuss related to work within the public right of way, that would be outside of the zoning code.
Okay. Let's see. Would you just explain to me the residential cluster development? I think you did that a long time ago and said it would only qualify in 5 different areas in the village anyway.
Yup, and you have to forgive me because I didn't print out that map. So this is again looking at that use table. So this would be under residential cluster development, and it's specially permitted in all of the residential districts, so RLD, RN, and RTN. And then I want to direct you to the actual code requirements for residential cluster development, which are in my code found on page 77.
Let me see.
It's an 8,000 square feet,
So
right?
in this portion of code, we talk about the maximum allowable dwelling units, so that the maximum number of residential units allowed is equivalent to 10 residential units per acre, rounded to the nearest whole number. For example, a half-acre parcel would allow a maximum of 5 residential units. Also included is the minimum area size. The minimum size for a residential cluster development is 30,000 square feet, comprised of a single lot or adjacent lots under common ownership. So this is an application that would be entertained under these parameters and through the special permit process.
Okay, so can you give me an example when you said it can go anywhere? Where does it say how big it has to be to start with?
Okay, so this is again on my page 78, and this
Page
is
80
number
in the
4.
books that we have.
It's page 80, I'm sorry.
That's
So this
okay.
is number 4, minimum area size. The minimum size for residential cluster development is 30,000 square feet, comprised of a single lot or adjacent lots under common ownership.
What does that translate to acreage?
So 43,560 is
Sorry.
1 acre. So it's less than an acre. There are not very many parcels within the village that are of the square footage.
Okay. That was
It
the,
would still have to go through a special permitting
Correct.
situation.
Public
and-
process, public hearing, notification, all the
Okay.
typical things that happen with
Is
it.
it too big? I mean, if you reduce the square footage requirement, could we create areas that would be more eligible for this? Where did we come up with 30,000? I mean, we have such a small village that 30,000 seems so big.
So we wanted to ensure that there was the opportunity, but it was not something that would overwhelm the community. In terms of, we wanted it to be an option. We chose 30,000 because it's slightly less than an acre, and we evaluated using our GIS, how many parcels that this would actually, there would be the potential for.
A way to cap it with.
Correct, and I
Put a
think
cap
that
on
there would be discomfort if we didn't give this particular type of development some sort of parameter. Because it basically states that you can develop in a different format than you would through the typical code. So let's say somebody wanted to build those 5 structures, but they wanted to have more green space, or they wanted to have more walkable area in their community. So that's where this code section comes from.
well, thank you.
Are there any remaining areas that you wanted to discuss? Em? Okay. Then what's the next step in the process, Jill?
So the next step is that you would request that the village attorney draft this into a local law and then follow the process for a local law, which includes, again, a public hearing and also completion of seeker.
if there are no more areas that we need to look for consensus on, I think that request is going to be made. Do you need a board vote or just the request to be made? Okay, I'll send you a note with that request, and we'll just discuss if there's anything last that we need to do before we move to that step.
And this passes with just a regular majority, not a super majority.
Okay, Megan, I think we have some meeting minutes that we need to approve. So item number 3 is a motion by the village board to approve the meeting minutes of June 9th, 2020. But before I say that, thank you for your patience and for helping to facilitate this discussion. Thank you for all the board members for sharing your concerns and for trying to work towards consensus. I know that we're not all going to get what we want, and I think I heard the story of that sometimes even if you request chocolate cake and the baker's making a marble cake, you don't get a chocolate cake. You have to get a marble that has a combination of stuff from vanilla and chocolate. But I really want to thank all the board members for bringing up the points that you wanted to discuss. And now I'll move to that. Megan, I'd like to get a motion by the board to approve the meeting minutes of June 9th Village Board meeting. Can I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
By trustee Mishler,
Second.
by trustee Wojka. Any questions or comments about those meeting minutes? They're from a long time ago. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Megan, were both of these, everybody was here for both of those meetings?
One abstention.
From the first one? Any abstentions?
Yes, aye.
Okay. Trustee Banowski will abstain. Item number 4 is a motion by the village board to approve the meeting minutes of June 23rd, 2025, village board work session meeting.
So moved.
By trustee Mishler. Can I have a
Second.
Second by trustee Banowski. Any questions or concerns about the June 23rd meeting minutes? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone who needs to abstain, Megan? Okay, then that will be unanimous. Upcoming meetings, there's a village board meeting Monday, November 10th, 2025 at 6 p.m. and a work session meeting on Monday, November 24th, 2025 at 6 p.m. And while it's not listed on here, there will be a meeting asked for by Village Manager White so that we can approve the whatever, whether it's a resolution or what the motion is that we need to take care of for the DRI sometime, I would say probably at the beginning of next week, and we'll check with everybody's schedules.
I'll be out of town on the 24th.
Okay. Of October, November?
No, November, yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. With that, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Trustee Wojka,
Second.
by trustee Banowski. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then that will carry. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to anybody who joined us online. And Jill, if you can let them know that